Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with the Average Joe Sports Show. Nebraska on the road for the first time. Do they respond to last weekend?
I'm Gary Sharp, and does the Nebraska defense respond to what happened, especially in the second half last Friday?
Hi, Bill Doleman. Can the Nebraska offense chase 7? And a little bit later on, I'm only joking.
And it's Elijah Herbel here. That's a lot of questions. We'll also wrap this show up with our predictions for the college football weekend. It's become a tradition here on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Welcome to it. It's the Average Joe Sports Show, episode 57. That's Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. It's on to Purdue. Somewhere in my mind, Bobby Knight screaming about Purdue. Sick and tired of losing to Purdue. The E-True Hollywood story, halftime, Bob Knight meltdown. Meltdown's not maybe quite the word for the last week, fellas, but Nebraska fans want to see improvement. Of course, this football team wants to see improvement, Sharpie.
Yeah, it's been a weird week, and it might be the past is dictating our mood this week of games that look familiar like last Friday night. I don't know. The vibe is really off. And maybe we got hit with a dose of reality about where this team currently is compared to where we think or want this team to be. But I've been surprised at how people have been like, well, I guess they might be those 8 and 9 win projections might be. I mean, it is game 5, but they have put themselves on the clock to really tell everybody who they are this weekend and then moving forward. Weird vibe, but almost very similar to past years around here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like the calendar got turned back from 2024 to any time between 2018 and 2022. And it does feel like that. And it's been so hard for Nebraska as a football team, as a fan base, as a state to recapture the excitement of Colorado week. And then that culminated with the Colorado game day, and then the enthusiasm all the way from start to finish of the show that Nebraska put on that Saturday. We talked about it on this show and on others that everything that Nebraska did, Colorado week and day of game, and the show that it put on was 2 thumbs up, 5-star reviews from the performance on the field, second half with the exception, but the game was well in hand. The third quarter show, all of that. It was just at a fever pitch for so long, and they've not been able to recapture that. You had the pedestrian win over Northern Iowa that maybe revealed a couple of things that concerns, but that they need to know that going into Illinois, and they can tweak it and go and play a solid game against Illinois. And there was just no flow in that game last Friday night. And I think that they are trying to regain footing that they just have not been able to do for the last 2 weeks. And now they go on the road, a morning game at Purdue. Who knows what the atmosphere is going to be like? Are they going to be able to recapture it there and bring it back against Rutgers?
Well, the mood this week that I'm feeling really among Husker Nation is that feeling of, here we go again. It's a fan base that has been hurt before and doesn't want to be hurt again. That's kind of the feel I get right now is how many times over the past decade has this fan base let themselves get their hopes up, whether it be Tanner Lee, man, he looks great at the Manning Passing Academy, or Adrian Martinez, you got the freshman quarterback, you got a guy to build around. You talk Casey Thompson coming in the offseason, where you have hope that we're going to have a quarterback that can sling the ball around the yard, and he's going to eliminate the problems of Adrian Martinez. Like, there's been so many times that this fan base has gotten their hopes up only to have their hopes come crashing down within a matter of weeks. And I think what we're seeing this week is the natural reaction to that is they had their expectations changed following the Illinois game, and it went from a team that you can be excited about to a team that you're worried is going to break your heart again. And I think that's where Husker Nation is at right now, is you don't want your heart to be broken again, and therefore it's back to wait and see. It's back to, well, let's see what they can show against Purdue. Purdue has stung them before, especially in West Lafayette. This is an easy game. Everyone that I talk to around this place is just like, man, are they going to do it again? Are they going to break my heart again? And Husker fans don't want their hearts to be broken again. They don't want to be too invested into something that is just going to end up hurting them.
Well, that excitement to worry switch has happened for sure. Difference is you have a playmaker at quarterback. You feel like you've got a guy that's pretty dialed in defensively and offensively with his football team, and head coach Matt Rule. And just kind of checking out his presser before we jumped on here. Week has sounded good. It's not the best week of practices ever. I mean, that wasn't the narrative, but I think they looked pretty honestly at it. So, what path do they take here? Is the team going to wallow in last week and getting pushed around? Do they respond the right way? Do they kind of exhale and just go back to work? I mean, the tone that's been kind of issued by the players is they're angry and they're going to do something about it. But they also are smart enough to take a pretty deep dive into why things went wrong. So I think that's why this line's probably 10. Maybe it jumps a little more. And you have a football team that's pretty interesting. It's full of guys that are in the 5th and their 6th year that really want to be a difference maker for this program. And you got young guys right now that some of them aren't really blinking in the moment. I mean, Raiola's not hiccuped much. I know he had a couple of, drops in that fourth quarter and wants a throwback, but other than that, the guy balled out. So can they get it fixed? I'm interested too if things get simplified. What I mean by that, Bill, go to you, is just the communication seams where you had checks in the secondary and then you had guys looking at each other when they gave up a touchdown. I wonder if things got streamlined a little bit for that, because it's going to be run the football at you until you stop it, and then they'll try and get some mismatches going. Purdue will.
Well, I would think that Matt Rule spent some time in the defensive rooms and just simply said, what happened? Especially after Tommy Hill went down, why wasn't there you don't want to say seamless transition to his backup, because that's not the case, but why wasn't there more consistent play defensively against Illinois, and why wasn't it better in the second half? I would think that, Nebraska's going to, what do they take, 70 players with them to Purdue? So 74. You're not going to worry about playing 74 guys on defense, that you're going to have a more, cohesive unit, a smaller pool of players to go to. You would think that everybody would be closer to the same page in the book so that there wouldn't be such a drop-off. This is what we're going to do. And when you're in there, this is what we're going to do. And you have to be ready to go in there and do it, and not wait to see if maybe your name is going to get called. And if it does and you're not prepared, we got problems. Everybody should be understanding that they are at play to play against Purdue this week. Now, Purdue's got a pretty good ground game. They apparently have some issues at quarterback if Hudson Card is going to get benched. So what is the challenge going to be to Nebraska secondary? And let's face it, J.J. McCarthy Light played probably the best game of his career at Illinois, and Luke Altmaier. So it took a career game for Illinois to beat Nebraska in overtime. If Tony White is the defensive coordinator, we all believe that he is, and he was near the top of the list of some jobs last year, you would think that some significant adjustments would have been made, and perhaps this may have been the most critical meetings of the relationship between John Butler and the secondary coverage and Tony White as to just what we're doing back there with our personnel.
Yeah, it's the balance of woulda, coulda, shoulda. Is the problem the team across from you, or is the team inside your locker room? And you look at, like, Nebraska for 45 minutes played good. They played good enough to win the game. It's those last 15 minutes, and then your lasting memory is that debacle in overtime. I think you're going to balance this game on Saturday being for pride. Guys, I think on defense, listening to them, and maybe I'm wrong, guys, this was my takeaway, is you had guys that were embarrassed, especially some of the older guys, because they're supposed to be X and they're not X. And maybe the reality is last year they were good, but the same things that bothered them, but now they've played a better team, like getting off the field, those kind of things. They've reared their ugly head. I think what will be a good challenge, and I think Purdue is a good team for Nebraska to play right now. I think this is actually ideal. Last year Illinois came along after Michigan, and you looked at Illinois and you're like, okay, road game, tough game, physical team. Well, let's see what Nebraska's about after they got kicked by Michigan. Well, they showed us a little bit. I think going on the road for the first time, and this is the latest road game Nebraska's had since 2013 after starting with 4 on the road. So they go on the road and they play a team that, let's be honest, you should beat, but it's a team that's going to line it up and run at you, not away from you, and they're going to scheme to get to the edges. They're going to look at the last 2 weeks and go, Nebraska defense, we're just going to hand it off and we're going to try and pound it at you with Maccabee and Love. So I think this is actually an ideal game for Nebraska. That's why I think I will probably take more out of the response by Nebraska than the result.
I mean, if they get the response that you want, the result that you think is going to happen. So I see where you're coming from, Sharpie. And in particular, I look at two guys. I look at Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker with what kind of havoc they can cause on the inside. You were expecting those two to be the guys that set the tone for the defense, if you will. The guys that in the rushing attack were physical, were violent, made it really tough to run inside. And then whenever you're able to make a team one-dimensional, they're able to get off after the passer. For the downhill rushing attacks you faced in Northern Iowa and Illinois, those two have been relatively quiet. So I think it's a pride game for those two to show, we are NFL guys. We are guys that are going to be taken in the first couple rounds of this upcoming draft. We're going to go out there and prove it and, single-handedly go try to shut down that Purdue rushing attack. And that's not what you can do as an interior defensive lineman. You need help from the guys around you, but it starts with those two. You got to take on your blocks. You got to clog up the inside, and you got to let your linebackers be free to go make plays. And if they can do that, I don't think this defense is going to have many issues slowing down this Purdue attack. As you kind of talked about, they're already one-dimensional with how they come in. Their passing attack has been abysmal to start the season. Their rushing attack, they have Maccabee. I think Maccabee's a really good running back, but it's not a threatening rushing attack, I don't think, in that they're going to go gash you for 250 yards. It's about pride, to your point, Sharpie. It's about the expectation, and it starts to me with those two guys inside.
Well, you said it perfectly, Elijah, with where are the rest of the mates, right? If you're going to double tie or throw two guys at him and then maybe chip him, you need those other down dudes to go make some plays. I mean, and Jamari's your emotional leader. Your big Jack, MJ Sherman, right? Is somebody that could respond the right way. You have that sideline interaction with some of the linebackers and Ty Robinson, just being on the same page. And you just don't want guys to fall off and try and do too much. Stick to doing your job, be physical, and don't let that, oh no, here we go again, enter into your mind. Just go play ball. Easier said than done with this football team, and Rule touched on it. I want to go to the offense, and how's the defense respond? That's one of the keys and one of the questions for Saturday at 11. But on the offense, I'm interested in this balancing act on offense. Great that Nebraska has balance, but Gary, interested to kind of get your feel on what they want to do. You talk about running the football, and is that going to be a priority? Because you're going to need, you can't just turn the light on and all of a sudden be a good fourth quarter rushing team, be a physical rushing team, but you feel obligated with the quarterback you got and the talent you have to use it. So what's the right answer?
Yeah, I think, people are, you can tell people's observation of this game on how they approach Satterfield and a game plan. Oregon State, Notre Dame ran through Purdue, but they also had Riley Leonard run for 100 yards as the quarterback of Notre Dame. Quarterback Oregon State ran for 66. Dylan Raiola is not going to do that. But it's not like Satterfield gets crazy and all of a sudden says, oh, if you guys think I'm going to run, I'm just going to throw the ball. There's only 3 times in Rule's tenure at Nebraska with Satterfield that they have thrown the ball, more than 50%. And 2 of them have occurred in the last 2 games where they took what the defense gave them. But I think Nebraska is smart enough, and I think subtly, Matt Rule said, hey, I want more carries out of Dowdell. I want EJ in the game, that they're going to find a way to run the football because they have to. And if you have a team that you think you can beat by running the football, man, it opens up your pass game as well, even if you have 15. So I think this is a game to be balanced and dynamic, but I think Nebraska will always operate with whatever the defense gives them, they're going to do. But as all four of us have talked, they all go hand in hand. The wide receivers got to help out the running backs. The offensive line's got to help out the running back. Quarterback's got to help the wide receivers. It's all ingrained together. But I expect them to be able to move the ball. The thing I want to see is points, guys. Mm-hmm. Nebraska has to score points. I mean,
second half points?
Yeah. I mean, second half where there's adjustments made on the other side. You're not able to run the ball as effective. Now, I get it. There have been a couple of wonky second halves in there of guys that you've played or you've kind of sat on the ball. But Nebraska needs to show that they're more than a 45-minute team. And maybe this is the week because you get to the fourth quarter and you're still in a comfortable lead, but then you throw the hammer down and you go from being up 10 to being up by 17, 21, and it's Katie bar the door, and you finally run for 75 yards in the fourth quarter?
My concern on the balance thing, and I've harped on this, is, okay, it's one thing to balance out your attempts, passing attempts, with rushing attempts, but is there a near balance in terms of the threat? You know, Dylan Raiola is going to make some plays with his receivers, and they're a threat in the passing game to have some big plays and chunk plays of 20 plus, 50 plus with those receivers. But is there a balance on the other side, 60-40 even, where there is a threat to break off a big run? And that's what I just question about Nebraska's run game. Yeah, it's one thing, 4 and 5 yards at a pop, okay, but you don't have the 15 to 20 yarder where there is that threat of the balanced threat of passing for big plays and running for big yards. You know, the big play is reliant on Raiola's arm and those big receivers at times with their catch radius, you know, pulling down and picking up 20, or Borkircher, you know, had a 20-yard or 30-yard gain a few weeks ago. Lindenmeyer broke free when they overthrew him. But I just don't know if there is that balance on the other side where every 5 plays or so, 5 carries, you are going to get that 15 to 20-yard bust through, that 15 to 20-yard bust through. That's where I think Nebraska, in terms of balance with the run and the pass, the run game doesn't pose a big threat right now. And with now their third left tackle, with questions about Mazuka and starting or backing up left and right guard, is this the week where, okay, somebody steps forward on the left side, Mazuka's back and doing his thing, and Nebraska is going to be able to gain some big yards against a defense in Purdue in which they should get those big plays. But one game is not necessarily going to be the indicative of what they can do against Rutgers or Indiana or way down the road to Ohio State and company.
And Bill, I think you bring up a good point, but my take on like the explosive running game is through the first 4 games of the season, we know what this Nebraska football team is, and they're not explosive on the ground.
Right.
I think big picture point of view, if Nebraska wants to be a college football playoff team, they need to get explosive on the ground. But on the flip side of that, I still think they have enough in the ground attack this year to go out and be successful as an offense. Elite, no. But I think they can be a very successful offense with what they have in the rushing attack, because what they've shown me is they're an offense that uses the run to set up the pass. They're not a balanced team. They try to find balance in terms of play calling, how many times they run it, how many times they pass, in order to make it easier on their freshman quarterback. And this isn't me disagreeing with you. I think we're in 100% agreement here. Yeah. I think you might have a guy coming down the road and Jamarian Parker that maybe could be your home run hitter as a running back. I don't think you have that guy on roster right now. So it's a question of what do you want to do versus what can you do? Because you go back, look at the first 4 games, Nebraska. I mean, the biggest thing I'll say about Satterfield is he's very predictable as an offensive play caller, which I think Husker fans in years past have screamed for. You know what? They're going to run the ball on first down. If you have a successful run on first down, get yourself 5-6 yards, you're going to go back to it. If you don't, you find yourself in 2nd and long. The best chance you have to pick up 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 8 is going to be with 15 in the arms of your quarterback. And that's what Nebraska is this year. Is that going to limit what Nebraska can be offensively? Yes. Can Nebraska still find balance and still find success as an offense if that is their identity? I believe also yes. So it's a big picture question. in terms of in the next 3-4 years, when you have Dillon on roster, can you be an explosive rushing attack? They're going to need to be that if you want to reach the heights that you think you can reach with Dylan Raiola. On the flip side of it, though, I think they can be successful with what they are this year, and that's using the run to set up the pass, being successful on first down, and making it easier on your freshman quarterback.
Tight end, wideouts, running game, veteran offensive line. When you started the season, now you've got a guy in Gunnar Gatula who they were encouraged by, wasn't perfect. He's going to get the nod at left tackle on Saturday, and he's got some mates next to him that have played decent. If you get the bazooka back, that'll help with that right side of the line, and you just look different. You got a different attitude on that line with him. But when it comes to those body blows guys, it's pretty imperative to go on some long drives. And Nebraska had an 18-play drive in the first half against Illinois. They had a 5-minute drive that started at their own 40 that they missed the field goal on. So Nebraska can wear down teams. That's in their arsenal. But they've also scored quickly, and I'm just wondering that complementary football piece where you hold the football, you get points, you punch away, and then your defense sitting on the field the whole time because they looked gassed, fellas, in the second half with what Illinois was doing to them.
Yeah, it's I think you don't want to beat yourself up so much over one game, but it probably came at the right time. I think it because it look at, there's a lot of comparisons to the 2016 season around here. Let's say Nebraska would have lost to Indiana. There was a close game early in that year. Would that have refocused you? I mentioned it right away. Do you thank Illinois down the road? Do you hey, thank you. You showed us exactly what we are, and we got to do this. I think, the one dynamic on offense as Bill and Elijah were alluding to that I was thinking of is sometimes Dylan Raiola might become a blessing and a curse, because this was the game in West Lafayette 2 years ago that the effort, Troy Palmer is down there somewhere, began, where Trey Palmer had the incredible game is, hey, if we're struggling a little bit, 15 will bail us out. And you might even look at it from the other side of the ball. So they have to find a way, because I think they said earlier this week, or this was my read, Dylan is here. We need other people to come up and join Superman. We need people to come into the phone booth with him. Are they ready to do that? And this is a game to kind of see, okay, we took another step in the evolution of our offense. Who else is on Dylan's level that we can keep this train moving?
Do they have that? Do they have enough guys at his level or ready to come up to his level?
I would almost want guys that are more on the infectious attitude that he's given off right now.
Okay.
I think it's pretty interesting that the guys that played well Friday night were guys that kind of just got here. Mm-hmm. They don't have the past dictates the present kind of mentality of, oh no, here we go again. These guys, the wide receivers and Raiola and Sierra Wright, are balling out, and they're going, what are you guys doing, man? We just got here. This is fun. This is what we're supposed to do. Oh man, we lost a football game. Where the older guys, it almost was like, man, someone came and stole my cat off the porch.
It's all right. Cats aren't cool.
Another thing too, what Gary was alluding to, it, you got to score points, and those long drives, those Nebraska cannot feel the pressure of the special teams, right? When they've got those long drives, and then it gets, we got to put this in the end zone, because what confidence do they have? That if they have to put it, kick it, do they have the confidence that they're going to make it? So that's another element. That's another element of pressure that offense probably feels as it marches, 18 plays, and you get to play 13, 14, and 15. It's like, we got to score. We got to get this in the end zone, because it's maybe unspoken. We don't want to leave it up to our kicking game. And down the stretch, Schmidt, you alluded to it, 5-minute drive that had great field position, chance to win the game, missed the field goal. So now, how much pressure is it on that offense to score points? And I think at the beginning of the season, I said Nebraska's kicking game has to be complementary. It can't be something that they rely on. Well, there were a couple times where they relied on it and they got a field goal when they should have had a touchdown. And then they should have had they had a makeable field goal and they missed it going overtime and lose. So the pressure that they might be feeling on special teams production, what kind of impact does that have on your offense when you get into the red zone? We got to score because we don't know what will happen if we don't.
It was almost perfect, Elijah, where you get a field goal or a touchdown. The offense in a tie game scores to take the lead. Then the defenses go out there. They're supposed to go out there with under 3 minutes and finish them off. It's what you've been striving for in a game of substance for a long time. And it went the other way, and then it went meth lab on you in overtime. So this is pretty fascinating Saturday with handling business, confidence, and just, regrouping between the years, but also physically.
Think about this. If Nebraska has on its opening possession on Saturday morning, they have to settle with a field goal try and they miss.
You don't go back to it. You're going for it on fourth.
Right. That's what I'm saying is how much does that hang over the rest of the game? Right. If it's at the beginning, you got a long drive. What was it on Friday night? Illinois was ahead 7-0, as I recall. But anyway, Nebraska's got that monster drive. Should have been an interference penalty, right? They should have had a first and goal. That doesn't get called. You do get the 3. Okay, you made it. Whew. But what if that is missed? And then you have the lingering questions for the rest of the game about our kicking game and what pressure that puts on the offense to score, especially on the road. And I think that is, that's a question that's going to last a long time. It doesn't matter if Nebraska goes 3 for 3 on field goals. And if they do on Saturday, that's an issue with the offense. But if they go 3 for 3, Hull has a career game. That's great. Helps you perhaps win the game. But why isn't the offense putting the ball in the end zone? And can he do that 3 for 3 against Rutgers and 3 for 3 against? You just don't know at this point.
Well, it's kind of a question that I have, not to keep on harping on this Illinois game, but at what point does the coaching staff lose confidence in the ability? Because I said it on our post-game show. I've said it. I don't think anybody in the state, whenever Hull went out there to go kick that field goal in the fourth quarter, thought it was going through the uprights. I think everyone was expecting the miss, hoping maybe you're going to be proven wrong and it was going to go through the uprights. But I think everyone was expecting the miss, from press to fans to people on the sideline. I think everyone thought it was going to miss. And lo and behold, it does. I think that confidence is really important. Is this coaching staff going to continue to have confidence? On a different note here, did the coaching staff set this team up for failure in the fourth quarter you used all your timeouts on that Illinois defensive drive. I know they had a great punt to pin you inside the 10, but did you take some confidence out of your team by saying, you know what, we're going to go to overtime? Or are you trying to instill confidence by saying we're going to overtime? That's been a minor thing this week. Yeah, you have to go probably 60 yards in 20 seconds, but you have a guy at quarterback that I think you feel confident in the ability to go move the football. Do you look at coaching decisions in terms of instilling confidence just in a big picture way, from kicking to not letting your offense go down there and try to go score some points with, I think it was 28 seconds left on the clock? Just in combination, does this coaching staff trust their team in close moments to not go out there and screw up? I think that's a question that I have moving forward.
That's a fair question. And I think we also have to look at coaches. What about coaches in late game moments? Are they making the right decisions? Are they instilling confidence in the team? Back to the little scenario that Bill presented. How about this, guys? Let's say Nebraska once again, let's say the scenario is a little bit different. Nebraska comes out and they pitch a 3 and out on defense, which they've only had 8 and 7 of them came in the first 2 weeks of the season, but they get the ball back. And so Nebraska offensively is moving down the field, but a couple of overthrows and they're on the 22-yard line. It's 4th down and 3. All Husker Nation is going, oh my gosh. I would say put the hands in the ball, put the ball in the hands of DR15. But for the early opportunity to instill confidence in him and your team, would you send Hull out there to get an early field goal on the books?
You're up 7, you stall. It can either be 10 or you stay at 7.
No, how about just the first drive of the game? So you got 9 minutes to go in the first half.
Momentum.
So you got a lot of play, got a lot of game if you miss the field goal.
I kick it early. And if it's not successful early, I don't go back to it.
That's what I'm saying is how much of a hangover is there from not going for it on 4th and 3 last Friday? How much is the hangover if they miss it on 4th and 3 on Saturday? And what happens when it's 4th and 3 late in Purdue at Purdue?
Right.
You know, that's the pressure this offense has to be, and the coaches have to be feeling about what are we going to do?
24 to 38 field goals last 3 years.
That's just rough.
We went through a stretch. And so there's also another element looking at the kicking struggles and trying to figure out the right running back. We went through a stretch where Nebraska was known as having the best kicker in the conference and one of the best running backs. I mean, you had Halou and Henry, and then you had Maher and Rex and Amir, and everybody was together. You know, it kind of like coincided. Now it's Nebraska has a revolving door at kicker, and we don't know who's going to be kicking and if they're going to make it, if they're going to send it through the pipes. And then you're still trying to figure out which guy is the guy at running back.
Yeah, Saturday could be a good hello again for Emmett Johnson. Yeah. His shiftiness, the breakaway thing is real. I mean, Dowdell's probably more of a home run hitter, and you've got the straight line speed from Ramir. But as far as reading and making a jump cut or making a dude miss, it's going to be a good day, or it could be a good day for Emmett, which I'm anxious to see. Nebraska just ground and pound it, get some play action going and go that route. But from the kicking standpoint, it shouldn't be this hard. And Nebraska is not the only program, historically speaking, to just not have it. How many more championships would old Bobby Bowden have if he'd had a kicker? Right? Yeah. I mean, it just
right.
Oh, how many times in a row? Like it's a trilogy, for God's sake. With those Florida State Miami years.
On the flip side, Bobby Bowden never had NIL in the transfer portal. In this era, how do you not have a kicker? That's what's shocking to me. I mean, you look across the Big Ten, everyone in the Big Ten, it feels like, has a kicker that no matter what's going on, if they're playing Nebraska, a 42-yard kick for the wins going to the uprights almost no matter what. Like,
kicker and a punter.
It feels insane. Like that it's been a 10-year stretch since Drew Brown that you've had a kicker you felt confident in, a decade. Like that is insane to me.
Yeah. Apparently, you do like Alabama. You go to the cradle of kickers and take them from Miami of Ohio.
Hey, it's instead of chasing 3, you're kicking 3, or you're buying 3. Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out to everybody else about the running back position. Rule kind of inserted himself into. I would have liked to seen. I want to see more. Okay, you're the head coach. The OC's office is right down the hallway from you. You got to make it happen. But which running back, this is for all 3 of you, do you think has the most upside that is currently on this roster for the next 7 games moving forward?
More upside is Dowdell, just because I love his combination of power and he can get going. I mean, he's not slow. He is a hammer, yes, but he has some acceleration. So as young as he is, his upside is my first pick. I think the guy they need to turn to more, because he might have the best vision, is Emmett. There are some runs you want back. We've all talked about where why didn't you cut X, Y, or Z way versus running into a pile. So I think they may go back to Emmett and settle or live with, all right, Emmett, and he's got a history. He's got a history of 25-yard plus runs, and he has a history of them in the second half, the knockout shot. So he may get caught inside the red zone. At least he got you 40. At least he got you the 25. You haven't seen really either of them, Emmett, or I should say Ramir or Dowdell, have a monster burst. So that's kind of where I'm at, and keep Ramir as your third down option. And he's a nice guy for a few runs between the tackles. He's a tough runner, but he's just not big. I worry about injury. So upside is Dowdell, but I think your you're potentially have that bust on a run, a big bust is going to be Emmett. He's shown that since he's been here.
To me, Gary, I'm going to agree with Schmidt here. Like from a physicality or a physical upside, it's Dowdell. Like if there's a guy in the room that you think has the best potential to go be an NFL back based on what his body is, it's Dante Dowdell. But you also, I'm going to agree with Schmidt here, like the guy with the best vision, the guy that might be best for this offense right now is probably Emmett Johnson because of his ability to find the hole, hit it hard, get his 5 or 6 yards, where I don't think Dowdell necessarily has that. But then I'll jump on with Ramir too, where Ramir's got the most make you miss. If there's a guy that I feel most confident with the ball in the open field, it's Ramir Johnson. Like if Ramir Johnson has the ball on the outside, open field, he's the guy that can go turn 10 into 40 because he's got the make you miss and he's got this speed. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for in terms of upside. But yeah, I'll echo what Schmidt says. Like if there's a guy that's an NFL guy in this room right now, it's Dante Dowdell because of that mix of both. He's got the acceleration, he's got the speed, he's got the ability to be resilient and not pick up injuries, be able to play a Big Ten style of football. My only question with him is what's the vision? Like, if you have Dante Dowdell with Emmett Johnson's vision, you've got yourself an all Big Ten running back.
Yes, you do.
Sorry, I had to go away. I had to replace my laptop's pacemaker.
Okay.
We're back now and ticking really well. Nebraska's got a combination. Each one has a certain strength that if you could combine them all, you'd have a pretty good running back. I agree that Dowdell's probably your NFL back. I wish you would quit trying to leap like Walter Payton. That doesn't get you anywhere, especially for as physical he is. Just hit the hole and get into the end zone. But I think for the offense, it just seems to me that Ramir is the one that they really, really want to be the guy because of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He does have a little better vision, I think, through the hole. Dowdell hits it and then goes to hit something else. Emmett just didn't, he can get you 20, but he can't get you 25. We get you 25, can't get you 30. And I love Emmett Johnson. And I got a soft spot in my heart for Gabe Ervin. For all that dude's been through, I'd love for him to get a couple of opportunities, maybe in short yardage situations with the size that he is, to get you those 3 yards on 4th and 3 and just go man on man in a hole and get it for you. But to me, for what that offense is and for Dylan Raiola's ability to put the ball in the hands with the pass, that's Ramir Johnson.
It's the Average Joe Sports Show podcast. Find us and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes as well. Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt.
And I'd like to make one more point on this running back discussion, because I think the best running back for Nebraska moving forward is going to be the guy that runs best behind Micah Mazuka. I think the offensive line matters a little bit more than the running back in like running between the tackles. I think Nebraska's got 3, maybe even 4 guys that can do it. So I'd also like to add Mazuka in this conversation just briefly as being a guy that you got to go run behind if you want to make some hay running the football.
And if that's the case, then to me, it's Dowdell.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the same boat.
They've shown flashes, like Colorado game. They've shown flashes when you've had the bazooka in there, where they can get downhill and they can pick up 12, 15 yards and annihilate people in that counter game. I mean, I that gives you hope if you're a Nebraska fan that they can be a really good running football team. But it's got to be that guy at right guard, and it's got to be Evans pulling in, and you run behind that right side, and then all is right with the world, where they're murdering people with the second and third level attack, and it's a first down, 12-yard gain. People start smiling again, and then you can come back to a play action. It's all good.
And for those that don't know offensive line play, just briefly, this has been on my mind. Like, if you get Mazuka out there this week, watch whenever him and Binhart have a double team on a power or a counter action. It's the most important block on that play, you could argue, to get that guy moving down the line of scrimmage and up onto your linebackers, because it can take out 2 guys with 1 block with that backside linebacker along with that defensive lineman. Those 2, Binhart and Mazuka, get ridiculous movement on that defensive line. It should be noted, we haven't seen them against Big Ten levels of play. They did against UTEP and against Colorado. Does it change against the Big Ten? Maybe, I don't know. But those 2 in the first 2 games of the year were getting ridiculous movement. If you can get that defensive tackle washed down the line of scrimmage onto the linebacker, it makes 2 blocks really easy for your counter look. You got the guard pulling around, taking out the defensive end, which that guy's got to crash down with Benhart coming down the line of scrimmage. And the further he moves, the easier it makes that block because that guard is coming and blindsiding you. And secondly, once you get those two blocks, opens up a giant hole where your lead blocker, a lot of times this year it's been Fedoni or one of your tight ends, but traditionally it's a tackle coming around, makes that block really easy for a linebacker because it's one linebacker trying to guard 6 yards of space against a big either tight end or offensive lineman trying to kill him. And it all starts with that double team. That's what Mazuka and Benhart were doing really, really well to start the season. That's what Nebraska needs more of. Can they do it against a Big Ten team? That's to be determined, but you need to have Mazuka back on the field, be able to see if they can do it, because you haven't had the same kind of success with Latofsky and Benhart.
Let's go around the Big Ten before we wind it down. More Friday night football. What do you think of the formal letter? Hey, it screws up the academics. So no more Friday night football.
We're trying to get into the AAU here. We can't be playing on Friday.
We can't be learning remotely. For the love of God. You want to throw a firecracker into the old toilet, the old porta-john, and really make the Big Ten stand up and sit up and say, oh, no. Is you come at it with the academic angle. You know, it's just not good for our students.
Hey, because if the Big Ten stands up against it, you can say, oh, I guess the Big Ten doesn't care about academics. What happened?
Shove your AAU.
Yeah, I mean, what this league is. I mean, we didn't come to Lincoln to play school.
No,
but you just told us. I mean,
I love that. That was good.
You know, the Nebraska brand is huge. 4.2 million, peaked at 5. It's the Nebraska brand. It's a standalone Friday night game. There's also the aspect that it was a close game. Mm-hmm. But I think what Nebraska has to play themselves out of being the Friday night team. Nebraska doesn't need Friday night. Friday night needs Nebraska. But the other thing I would push, Nebraska has a star. College football in the nation wants to see a particular guy play quarterback because he's 4 games into his career and he's become a household name. So they can sell, we got a star, and you hope that the Foxes and the CBSs and the and the Peacocks and the NBCs, they're like, we got it. We got to have you on a Saturday night. So it'll be curious because Eichhorst, when he was the AD, I always thought that he looked more towards the shield than the brand. And then it became Moose, Trev, and Dannon are more, no. I'm going to do what's best for Nebraska, not what's first best for the Big Ten, and then Nebraska will react. So we'll see what the response is. The Friday night is not going anywhere. They need Nebraska. Nebraska doesn't necessarily need Friday night, but at the end of the day, Nebraska could play on, at 3:00 on a Wednesday afternoon and people would still come.
Sure.
That's the thing. Don't take advantage of us. That's all I'm asking.
Well, and what you don't want is the recourse fine. We won't give you any more Friday night home games, but we're shipping your ass off to everywhere else on Friday night. And you don't want that.
It's the same thing I've said about alternate uniforms. Don't wear alternate uniforms at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. It's too iconic to see the sea of red, the scarlet and the cream, and the red in. When you wear those purple things they wore a couple of years ago, or every ill-fated homage to the black shirts, when people turn on the TV, they see the red, they see the N, they immediately know it's Nebraska. Yeah. Just as much as when they turn it on and they see the Michigan helmet, or they hear the fight song at USC, whiteout at Penn State, Alabama. It's iconic to see that, and to tarnish the brand and the logo and the scene of a home game with an alternate uniform. And people go, well, who's that playing? Well, you should know immediately. And they do when they see that. So if you want to do your alternate uniforms and you want to do your Friday night thing, do it for a road game and help somebody else out. Good Lord, if Northwestern does decide to leave the Chicago beaches and have a football stadium again, they're going to want Nebraska fans there, and they'll play a Friday night there, and there'll be 75,000 people, and most of them will be in red, right? If you want to have a Friday night game at Purdue, have Nebraska play there. But to have it in Lincoln, where, it is iconic to have on Saturday night, the big stage, all that, I think Nebraska's earned the right to say, just not here. Okay. We'll do the gimmick thing in somebody else's place, but we're not going to do it at home where it is too iconic and one of the most famous scenes in all of sports.
I'll be honest, I hate the letter from Dannon. I don't think you have a vindictive Big Ten commissioner anymore. I say anymore. Because what happens in Nebraska sues the Big Ten to go play football. We'll have fun playing on the road at Ohio State week 1. And then you know what? At Illinois, at Minnesota, you're going to start the year off with I think there's a little bit of vindictiveness in that from the Big Ten because of the way in which they handled 2020. With this letter, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's massive, but I do think Friday Night Football is not going anywhere. I think the Big Ten knows the uniqueness of the Friday night slot, similar to 10 years ago, the uniqueness of the 11 a.m. slot in college football. You saw how the 11 a.m. big noon kickoff has exploded in recent years. That's not going anywhere. Now you get the big brands in there as well, and they can't do anything about it. We're moving that way with Friday Night Football as well. You're trying to build the brand of Friday Night Football now this season, so down the road, you don't have teams complaining about playing at home on a Friday night because it's going to be a big-time slot. Like, on the Big Ten, I get that letter from Dannon, and I'm going Battle of the Bulge. I can't remember the general's name, but he gets the letter from the Germans back in World War II at the Battle of the Bulge saying, hey, we have you surrounded. You need to surrender. His response, nuts. One word.
I love this. I love the Average Joe Sports Show because of what just was mentioned.
We went Battle of the Bulge.
That's the Big Ten's response. Oh, you don't want to play at home on Friday night? Nuts. Like, you're going to. It's a reality. It's here to stay. So,
But Rutgers this Friday against Washington needs it more than Nebraska.
Sure.
Because it's a great showcase for lower level programs that get washed out on Saturdays. Rutgers gets a standalone game tomorrow night, and look what's going to happen, guys, because they roll into Lincoln next week. People are going to see if Rutgers plays well. They're going to be like, whoa, what is Schiano doing? Well, they're 4-0, and they're going to Lincoln next Saturday.
Well, Troy Dannon and Nebraska are their own worst enemy in regards to the letter, because as Gary mentioned, 4.2 million, peaking at 5 million. People tuned in to watch a Nebraska home game. That was, if you're channel surfing, if people still do that these days, and they come on that, they go, wow, that's a hell of a show. Look at that scene. I'm going to stick around.
Good ball game.
And to have that many people watch on a Friday night, they're going to say, I think we're coming back to Lincoln because we get a lot of people. So your own worst enemy, Troy. Thanks for the letter. Appreciate it. Pat on the head. But 5 million people tell us that we need to go back. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Winning is the best deodorant.
Yeah.
Okay. You win, you have a bigger voice because you already have the brand. But if you add winning to it, well, the rest takes care of itself, right?
What happens in Happy Valley? We're wondering about Illinois, their peak. What's their likelihood to keep this train rolling with a murderous schedule? Guys, does Penn State kind of bring them back down to reality? Or you think this thing's a dogfight?
With what happened with Penn State and what was it, Bowling Green a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Now they rolled Kent State last week. Do we really know how good Penn State is at this point? This might be a very similar thing to, do we know how good Nebraska is last week? Do we know how good Penn State is this week? Because Illinois is what Illinois is going to be under Brett Bielema from now until the time his tenure comes to an end. They're going to try to be big, rugged, physical, and run the football. And if Altmaier has the kind of game he had against Nebraska, Penn State might have some issues. But maybe Penn State is legit, and they are really good. And I tend to think that Penn State's probably pretty good.
Mm-hmm. The no alcohol, tobacco, but bring your firearms bowl is BYU at Baylor. So there's that.
Hey, before we move on to that, I want to apologize for something I said last week. Whoa! And Schmidt, was when you were your internet went down, but we came back and I mentioned the conversation about Matt Rule taking over at Penn State when James Franklin takes a job at Florida. I did not realize that was going to become a topic of conversation around the college football world this week with the impending firing of Billy Napier, that James Franklin is among the contenders for the job at Florida, as is Matt Rule. But we all know that if one domino falls, another one may fall the wrong way. And as Elijah alluded to earlier, that Nebraska fans don't want to have their hopes up and hearts broken. But I did broach that subject in jest last week. And because I'm good at the coach's carousel game, I regret it.
It's okay. Hey, just cheat. The result is this: just cheer for Billy Ball. I
saw that. Oh no, I'm too good at this.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'm too overconfident, but I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. I don't think Matt Rule's going anywhere. I know the alma mater draw is real, but you got a better shot of winning yourself your first national championship, potentially your only national championship, with 15 under center. It's as simple as that.
I agree.
I think you have NIL resources at Nebraska. You have a passionate fan base. Yeah, you have the alma mater draw at Penn State, but you never know if you're
to be your boss. But okay,
you never know if you're going to get a quarterback like this ever again in your coaching career. Matt Rule's in it, in my opinion, until Dylan Ryle is no longer at Nebraska, because it's not often you get a quarterback like this to come play for your football program. You never know if you're going to get this opportunity again. And what the opportunity provides is a chance at a national championship. If you have a high-level quarterback, that's what you have, a chance. So I don't think he's going anywhere up until 15 is no longer taking the snaps at Nebraska.
And he can take it, I think we can leave it at that. In the NFL draft when he's the head coach of the Giants. That's just another little
wow. Bill Doleman pulling all hand pins.
That's more likely.
We'll say goodbye to this. Who are you picking, Georgia or Bama? -2. Ugga.
Well, first off, I'm taking BYU over Baylor. Let me just throw that out there. Yeah. That seems like a pretty easy pick. Georgia, Bama. Georgia has not been as impressive as I thought they would be to start the year, but that's also kind of been the Georgia script in recent years. Is they're a team, they're kind of like the Chiefs. They turn it on late season once the playoffs come around. You can't take the first couple of games with too much, I don't want to say seriousness, but like, they know they're a team that if they play the way they can, they're going to be a college football playoff team, even if they're 11-1, 10-2. Bama, I don't know. It's going to be a tough one for me because I do really like Jalen Milroe at quarterback. I think he is fantastic. I think this Bama team is having fun in a way that they have not had since before Nick Saban. And Nick Saban had his brand, but now you have a coach in Kalen DeBoer that comes in and makes it fun. I think it's going to be a fun game. It's ultimate toss-up to me, but give me Bama. Why not?
I think Bama gets it done by a touchdown, and DeBoer's offensive mind is the difference. Sharpie, do you care, or do you have a pick?
Oh, no, I don't care at all. Back to, I think Penn State wins by 2 touchdowns. They're a lot more creative than Nebraska is on offense. So you'll see it in the run game and the pass game. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I think it's close until the fourth quarter. I like BYU as well. I like Kirby Smart to step out of the shadow of Nick Saban and lose again. 1-6, he will be. I know I went McAfee on you. So gave you some suspense. He'll be 1-6 against Alabama, and Georgia or Alabama wins a close game in T-Town. And I'm with Elijah. I like Milroe. Georgia hasn't been able to run the football yet like they usually run it. I don't think that's a get-right night in Tuscaloosa. But man, how great is college football? We went from last weekend to Michigan, USC. We get Georgia, Alabama in September, and we get our Power 2. Gosh, I love the SEC and the Big Ten getting together.
I love it. It's good. Bill?
Gary, speaking of Georgia's rushing attack, I got ETN on my college fantasy bench, so I could use a get-right game from Georgia. It'd be nice to have him actually playable again, but I digress.
I like with what BYU did to Kansas State the other night. That was really shocking, and I think it would shocked K-State midway through the game, and they could not recover. So I think BYU, as much as it pains me, takes care of Baylor, given what transpired in Boulder as well. I do not think Matt Rule is going back to Baylor to resurrect the Bears, but and I like Alabama. I think Kalen DeBoer, he's just been great wherever. We probably all covered him in Sioux Falls, and he's a likable guy. And the Kentucky Georgia game gives me pause about the Bulldogs this year. That eventually that hunger, you start to feel kind of fat. Just keep snacking, and you don't get hungry again. And I'm not sure that they'll be one of the final 2 standing at the end of the year. And I don't think they're gonna. I think Alabama wins it, especially being an underdog. I think they'll take that personally, and I like Alabama.
All right, we'll be back at it. The brunch edition, the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show, 10:30 for you. And appreciate you subscribing and liking on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We'll talk to you after Nebraska, Purdue, 10:30 Sunday morning. Thanks.